John Wertheim, Sports Illustrated executive editor, senior writer, and 60 Minutes correspondent. Of course, just spent some time with Deion Sanders, and he joins us now. What was the game plan if Colorado had lost to Colorado State, John, as far as 60 Minutes airing your interview?
Yeah, let me show you the Google Doc I wrote at about 1 a.m. Eastern time on Sunday morning when they were down 11, and we had to quickly ad-lib about how, despite this impressive start, maybe some of the passion's been cooled after a surprising. There were candidly there were some nervous moments there in the fourth. With about 10 minutes left, but all good.
But you were going to run that no matter what, even if they lost to Colorado State.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like the promos go out, and it's kind of too late to pull back. Honestly, I think the larger thesis would have held, right? This is a guy shaking up college sports, and he's really leaning into all these changes, and he's a charismatic guy. But yeah, it would have been suboptimal if they had suffered a home loss when they were 20 whatever point favorites.
Any difference in Deion from the last time he was profiled at Jackson State to now at Colorado?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, in some ways, very, like exactly the same guy. A lot of sort of very familiar tropes, and in other ways, it's really hard to exaggerate just how different a job this is. Going from the mission of elevating all these historically black, not just Jackson State, but all these HBCUs, to suddenly this guy is playing Power 5 football, and it's all about it's recruiting and NIL and conference realignment. I mean, it's really hard to exaggerate sort of and in some ways it's same guy, same job, same charisma, but it's a really different job than what he had 8 months ago.
Do you pitch the story when you first profiled him at Jackson State? You have to pitch this to 60 Minutes and say, what about this? And then how does it work with this story emerging this past Sunday?
My producer, Dragan Mihailovic, we were sort of talking. It's like, you know what? I know we just did this guy, but he's kind of relevant, and it's a kind of a different company. And it was like, why don't we give this a shot in a new location?
As far as he said, the mission, the job was accomplished at Jackson State. Like why leave? And I think he said, I'd done what I was supposed to do. Were you satisfied with that answer? That this is why he had done everything he was. What was the mission at Jackson State?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about that a lot last year, and he sort of said, "Look, I'm not one of these climber coaches that wants to make it up the ladder, and I don't need the money." He really leaned into the mission, and he'd never been to Jackson, Mississippi. He went there. He was very moved. Here was this historically black school. He talked a lot about how players that come here, Travis Hunter, they would be part of setting a different path. This wasn't just, hey, this is the best school that's recruiting me for the fattest NIL deal. He really leaned into the mission. The city was going through a water crisis. I mean, I can't describe, I can't exaggerate how big a deal this was in Jackson, Mississippi. Honestly, he kind of tiptoed around it. I think he got a bit frustrated. I think not everyone has his drive and ambition, and I think he sort of at some point sort of threw up his hands and said, "I've done all I can do here." But it's tough. Look, we've seen this all the time, right? I mean, what coach doesn't want a better job? We all know that you go from school A to school B. He positioned himself of, look, I don't need to be playing this game. I don't care what they're paying me. It's pocket change to me anyway. This is about something much bigger than getting to the next big college football job.
Did Prime Academy come up at any time in any of your interviews with him?
Yeah, it did. It did in Jackson. And I sort of said, you've got some answering to do. And he essentially said, it was one of the best things that's happened to me because I learned what I'm good at. I learned what I'm not good at. I made mistakes that I won't repeat again. And I thought he actually, we pushed him. He asked and answered, and we moved on.
Yeah, because I had an athletic director of a school that had an opening, and he said that he kept coming back to this Prime Academy, this high school that Deion started, and it fell apart for a variety of reasons. But that made him very cautious about wanting to hire Deion Sanders. I don't know if that happened with any other universities, including his alma mater, but I do think it played a role, at least with one athletic director. Could you see that happening?
So I do, and I'd heard that too. I mean, I think the other thing too is if you hire this guy, you're giving up some power if you're the AD.
Yeah.
He's doing, I mean, as far as I can, everything is legitimate, everything's within the guidelines, but you can see it even in Colorado. I mean, this is not your standard hire. And for some of these ADs that like to have, that like to oversee the football team and they want to consolidate things, I think it takes a certain kind of AD who's willing to take a risk on a personality as big as that.
What is his role at Colorado?
Yeah, it's a good question. And we asked him that and just sort of said, look, I see your business card. I see your title. What is a head football coach at a school like this? And there were, I think he sees himself in some cases as a father figure to some of these kids. Some of this is X's and O's. I mean, I actually was really impressed. This is not just someone who shows up and watches practice for 15 minutes and then goes out to lunch with boosters. I mean, he's really all in on the football part. But I think he also sees himself as a CEO. And, you go on the website for Colorado football and there's a little $ icon next to the players. And he's very transactional and very rational. And some of this is about making money for the school. And some of this is about the athletic department. Some of this is about he wants these kids to get paid appropriately. And he wants these kids to be well set up when they're done playing. I mean, the idea that he's just sort of a figurehead and he's this charismatic celebrity and this Hall of Famer, I was impressed at Jackson when I saw the level of his involvement, not just with sort of play calling and practice, but he knew which kids came from single-parent homes and which didn't. I mean, he knows who transferred from where, and this kid's a junior, but he's got sophomore eligibility. He really knows this team, and I think that's something that might get overlooked.
Yeah, there was a moment where there was a little pushback from you, where you challenged him a little bit, being honest. The only problem I had the way Deion came in was you can get rid of players, you can get rid of coaches. Don't do that on camera. And I thought that was unfair to those kids. That if you won one game, you're not in my future, get packing. But you can't have a video of doing that to these kids. And that's been my only knock on him, with what he did. He came in, he cleaned house. Okay, don't do it on camera.
I'm kicking myself. I wish I'd asked him that. I think that's a really good point. Don't humiliate these kids. I mean, it's not like they're signing consent forms too when the cameras are rolling. I mean, everything he does. There's, he's very good on social media, which I think is something else. I think a lot of programs are going to be playing catch up, honestly, whether it's NIL or whether it's the docuseries or whether it's, using that transfer portal. There are cameras everywhere, and you never know, is it for his own feed? Is this for Colorado? Is this for this Amazon docuseries? But everything he does is on camera. That's actually a really good point. These 19-year-old kids, if you're going to chase them out, you can do that behind closed doors.
All right. Last time we had you on, you were going to Wimbledon and you were going to work on Novak Djokovic. And I don't know where that stands, but also I'm going to guess, you being the peripatetic reporter, correspondent, that Lionel Messi would be maybe on your menu.
I got to tread carefully here. I like your instincts. The concurrent multimedia project he's involved in, it would be great. If Lionel Messi called this afternoon and said he's in, I'd be in.
Okay,
put it that way.
What about Djokovic?
Hopefully. It's just, honestly, I don't remember saying. Yeah, I think that's just a question of timing. But I think, he's done pretty well since that was about like 6 weeks ago, and he's added another major to his haul. Doing pretty well for 36.
Good to talk to you again, John. Thanks for joining us.
Anytime. Thanks, Dan.
That's John Wertheim, Sports Illustrated executive editor, senior writer, and, of course, correspondent for 60 Minutes.